Sometimes it's good to just dance.
Welcome to the Good Stuff Family Podcast. I'm Dawn Kendrick, and I am so glad you're here. These are stories from the perspective of a news reporter on a next-level assignment. Everyone has a story. Stories of hope, resilience, and how we believe God weaves people, relationships, opportunities, all of it for good. For many of us, faith leads our steps, others not so much. But that is what makes this growing Good Stuff family great. We know the journey is better together. Welcome to the family.
Well, I got a suggestion. Sometimes it's good to just dance. Come along.
Hey, good morning. The author series today is on the road in Fairport Harbor, Ohio, because we are spending the weekend here tapping into good stuff stories like my friend Colleen Murphy, who we've been working our way through this book, Murphys Don't Quit. And it's the story of the Murphys family and daughter Lauren's journey through a traumatic brain injury and what's called aphasia. And the journey, like a lot of the best good stuff stories, is really something that no one would have ever could have scripted. But the reason we love them so much is the way they rose above and continue to still warrior through complications from a car accident that caused her traumatic brain injury. So we are on chapter 15. Can we bring in Colleen? I'm with my friend Rich here in Fairport. We have a producer today, Colleen. Pretty fancy. Yeah, pretty fancy. Yeah, and you're joining us from St. Louis. So again, thank you for your time. And you're just back from Boston. This is huge.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we had a speaking engagement in Boston for Liberty Mutual at their home office, which was pretty cool. And your viewers probably don't know, but right before that, the Friday before, Lauren had a really, really bad seizure, and an hour and 20-minute seizure. So that was on a Friday. Sunday, she still couldn't hold a fork. She couldn't say her own name. She couldn't talk at all. And I knew she wasn't going to let me cancel this speech, but she did typical Lauren, and she rose to the occasion, and she pulled it together, and she nailed it. And it was great. We had about 600 people online Zoom. There was, the room had, I think, like 20, 25 people in it. Whenever you do corporate once in a while, so many people work from home, but we had 600 people tuning in on Zoom, which was pretty cool. But she did great. She did really, really well.
And learning by her example. So if you've been following us, but this is how you first saw Lauren when after in the hospital, right after she had the accident. Okay, when she was hit by a car running. Okay, this was her just not long before. Okay, and then now what you're doing, what you just described in Boston, here you are speaking to people and sharing the story, encouraging them that literally when all you can do is take the next best step, do that.
Yeah.
Do that. Because that's what y'all have done, right, Colleen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was, gives her a sense of purpose. And, every time we do one of these, it just really gives her a boost to her self-esteem. It makes her feel like she's contributing again.
Amen. So here, chronologically, this to this now on the speaking engagement. Mm-hmm. I mean, in the speaking circuit, and with the book, and just to set it up again for people who haven't been following. This is what's so compelling to me. When we get up in the morning and I'm like, please, dear Lord, just order my steps. Well, you know what? For awesome Lauren Murphy, who was before the accident doing this. And then after the
good job, swinging sleep. Awesome.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. What kind of music do you like to listen to, Greg?
Very good.
What kind of music do you like to listen to?
Swing it through, come on. Lift your toes.
Come on, lift your leg.
So you're gonna make me in charge of the DJ?
Good.
It's literally taking the next best step that she's doing there. This is how she warriored through to be able to most recently speak in Boston and inspire people. If you can do this today, y'all,
Doing good. Keep trying with that right hand. So good, Lauren.
If you can use a fork and a spoon without thinking about it, or this, you can move your arms. Again, this is my Lauren, who I love so much.
Good stretch.
So if you do that, the message for people listening today is gratitude. Gratitude, because right? You watch that. I mean, you're her mom, or you made Lauren Murphy. Like, how cool is that? Right? So that's why I'm so honored to walk through this book with you. And now we're picking it up on chapter 15, and they can order it on Amazon, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, anywhere books are sold.
It's Cornhuskers. So you want to set us up really quick, getting us in. It starts out at QLI. What is QLI, and how did she get to this point?
Sure. So QLI stands for Quality Living Incorporated, and it's basically, they market it like a brain injury college. There's several different buildings, and it teaches independence. And Lauren had like her own little apartment, and then whenever she would have scheduled therapies, she would go from building to building. She knows her own schedule. It's on her phone. And they basically taught her how to live independently. Now, with that said, I also moved to Omaha. My kids laugh because they're like, yeah, Lauren's got to learn independence, and mom moved to Omaha too. But I wasn't prepared to send her off to Omaha without being able to talk and to tell me if something was wrong. And if, with her aphasia, she couldn't communicate. I needed to have eyes on her every day. So whenever her therapies were over, I would pick her up, take her back to my apartment. We would have dinner, spend the evening together, and then I would bring her back in, tuck her in, and watch TV with her for a little bit, and then head back to my quiet apartment. But it was about at the 2-year mark. They had actually came to the to RIC to talk to me about sending her there right after. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't ready to do that yet. I needed to get home to my other kids. So we got to that point, and the doctors had recommended it. I really was against it, and so was Dave. And then it was my older kids, my Sam, that's a year older than Lauren, and Aaron, who's 4 years younger, that were like, it would be good for her. And I had to take a step back and evaluate and think, does it matter if I'm the one that's putting her back together or a professional? And I had to take myself out of the equation and do what I thought was best for her, which is what we ended up doing. But again, I moved there with her so that I could have eyes on her every day.
Yep, because this is your mama bear, and your journey with her was side by side, and yet you have all these other kids. This is this family story, and Dave. Oh my gosh, I love Dave. You two are a dynamic duo, and so let's go ahead and have you then read Cornhuskers. Okay. This is chapter 15.
Okay. Oh, I have us on 14. Did you read chapter 14 already, Fiona?
Back. Yes, I forgot. Yes, we did. I went ahead and so last week our people who were following heard
Yeah. No worries. It was the week of the seizure.
Exactly. And here you are going to the hospital, and I thought, I'm going to read it. And it was a chapter about dealing with seizures back then. So let's just point this out. Like, this is not all just rainbows still. Right? It's real life. It's real life, and it's still a hurdle that she continues to warrior through. So thank you for bringing that up. So we read the chapter previous was called Fiona. Great chapter. I could barely read myself because I was, as I'm reading it about seizures, knowing full well that you're en route to the hospital with her. So, for our people who are listening, we're on 15 on Cornhuskers.
Okay, awesome. All righty. Chapter 15. Lauren wasn't officially moving into QLI until Monday morning, but we moved most of our stuff in on the preceding Saturday. Decorating her room was a family affair. We all wanted Lauren to feel our love and a little piece of home in her new digs. There was a whiteboard on the wall next to her bedroom door, whereon all of her siblings wrote messages and wished her luck on her new adventure. Sunday afternoon, all but Lauren and I went home to St. Louis. In my new Omaha apartment, the cable wasn't hooked up correctly, so Lauren and I spent the rest of our Sunday hanging out quietly, alone with our thoughts. I downloaded the movie Crash Reel on iTunes to watch on my laptop, hoping Lauren would be interested. crash reel was the story of Olympic hopeful Kevin Pierce and his battle back from a traumatic brain injury. 5 minutes in, Lauren fell asleep. I sat next to her and watched her sleep for hours. I wanted to soak it all in because the next day I would be dropping her off with strangers. This was harder than her first day of kindergarten. When she started kindergarten, if she felt scared or alone, she always had her big sister sitting in the next classroom. And her kindergarten class wasn't a boarding school. There would be no familiar faces for her at QLI. She had to do this all on her own. I was hopeful for her future, yet terrified of the process. Meanwhile, back at my apartment alone with nothing but my thoughts, I muddled through my online classes, struggling more than I anticipated. One thing I quickly learned was the online classes are not for old people. Another realization was that psychology was definitely not for me. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't memorizing which scientists came up with what theory and how the hippocampus works. I was way out of my league. Despite the fact that I felt I was too old and stupid for college, I was thankful to have my classes. They were a needed distraction. I missed the loud, crazy chaos of the Murphy house, but knew that if I took these classes at home, surrounded by chaos, I would have zero chance to pass psychology. Lauren's private room with its half bath was located in QLI's house too. The house was modern with a shared kitchen, a dining room area, and 2 separate rooms for showers. Just off the kitchen area was a walk-in pantry. All the residents in House 2 had their own little section for grocery items. Routine grocery shopping was incorporated as part of the therapy program. Lauren would learn how to make lists, find her items at the store, and stick to a budget. One thing I knew for sure is that Murphy girls struggle with sticking to a budget, especially the matriarch. Dave would have been overjoyed if I sat in on the budget planning meetings. Unfortunately, I was too busy learning the functions of the hippocampus. After the first week, Lauren finished all of the evaluations needed to establish her baseline. I was invited to a meeting with all of her therapists and administrations to discuss her needs and their plan for rehabilitation. Dave was joining the meeting via conference call. This was eerily reminiscent of her big meeting at RIC. I anticipated this meeting to be slightly more pleasant. The director opened the meeting with pleasantries and let us know how much they all really enjoyed getting to know Lauren as a person. So far, so good. The next person to put in her 2 cents went straight for the jugular. She was one of the psychologists on staff and had given Lauren something called a neuropsych test earlier in the week. This test is primarily given to gauge intelligence, memory, attention, and planning abilities. The psychologist began her report by telling us that Lauren scored very low in cognition. She had only one score that landed in the normal category, but it was the very lowest score possible. She made sure to mention that had Lauren taken this test before her accident, the score would have been much higher. Thanks, Captain Obvious. She went on to give me an example of her cognitive deficits. I showed her a triangle, a square, and a circle, and then asked her to point to the circle. She didn't even know what a circle was. I sat there stunned. This was way worse than the time her 5th grade teacher told me at parent-teacher conferences that Lauren was boy crazy and she talked too much. I was silent. Obviously, this woman didn't understand the complexity of receptive aphasia. I wanted to ask her if I were to show her those same shapes and ask the question in Mandarin, would she be able to answer correctly? Lauren knows what a circle is. Her aphasia is keeping her from understanding the question. When the psychologist finished with her depressing report, she left the meeting. I can't say I missed her. The other therapists had a mix of good and bad things to say. There was nothing terrible, just examples like when Lauren had PT scheduled for first thing in the morning, she would dress herself in jeans and booties instead of workout clothes and tennis shoes. The rest of the team stayed for the whole meeting. I understood that if things were perfect, we wouldn't need to be there, but that psychologist really rubbed me the wrong way. She didn't even know what a circle was. That sentence echoed in my mind over and over again. Honestly, I barely paid attention to the rest of the meeting. I was so mad at myself for not defending Lauren to that woman. She may have known the exact functions of the hippocampus, but she knew nothing about aphasia or how to treat people with compassion. The main thing I loved about QLI was their unique approach to therapy. They designed each program for the individual. Their goal was for the patient to return to their community in a capacity that makes the most sense for them. With the exception of the psychologist, everyone that Lauren encountered at QLI treated her as a real person, someone that mattered and was more than just an injury. In Lauren's first week as part of her life skills program, they took her off campus for a manicure, and at the end of the week, she had a blowout. In between the pampering, they made time for hard work at speech, OT, and PT. Her work ended every day at 3 in the afternoon, followed by activities such as movies, games, and arts and crafts for the residents in the evenings. The first few nights I left before the activity started, hoping she might enjoy them. She preferred staying in her room. We eventually established a routine of me picking her up every day at 3 o'clock and taking her back to my apartment for a nap, dinner, and to just hang out. I loved that she napped in my bed. It helped me feel less alone at night because I could still smell her perfume on my pillow. We returned every night around 7 p.m. in time for her evening meds. Each night at QLI, I would lay with Lauren in her bed and we would snuggle until she was ready to fall asleep. When our kids were little, they always climbed in our bed for morning snuggles. When they got older, they plopped down at the end of our bed at night just to hang out and talk. Dave hated it because their peak time was never before 10:30 p.m., but I loved it. Our late night talks were some of our best conversations. Fiona was always trying to kick them out so he could go to sleep, but we rarely listened to Fiona. I hated leaving Lauren alone in her room at night. It was important to me that she never felt abandoned. Walking out the front door of House 2, along with the 15-minute drive back to the apartment, was the hardest part of each day. Alone in the car was where I allowed myself time to cry. I wasn't nearly as sad as when I was alone in my Chicago apartment, but I still didn't consider myself in a happy place. Back at home, I was missing Ryan and Maggie's first day of school for the third year in a row. Dave made sure he took crappy photos each year so I didn't feel so left out. This year, I would also be missing Maggie's first homecoming. Her older sisters helped her pick out a dress and took care of her hair and makeup. I felt helpless. I was hundreds of miles away from my kids, and other people were stepping in to help in my absence. For the first time, I was primarily only in charge of myself. My identity for the last 25 plus years was trying to be a good mom and taking care of my family. Lately, I felt like I was disconnected to everyone, and as time went on, I worried Dave and the kids would become so well adjusted they would no longer need me. Looking back, I know how ridiculous that was. Dave is the most helpless individual on the planet. Of course he needed me. He can't even figure out how to order a pizza by himself. In other news, Courtney shared with me that Lauren's old boyfriend met her for coffee to tell her that he was looking at engagement rings for his current girlfriend. I knew that he had moved on. He waited 6 months before he began dating again. Part of me understood, while the other part of me felt that Lauren was worth the wait. She would recover. The fact that he had enough respect to meet with Courtney to tell her his plans made me grieve all over again for what could have been. I decided against telling Lauren. To be honest, I wasn't sure that she would even understand. A month or so later, Erin saw on Instagram that Lauren's ex was engaged. She FaceTimed me at my apartment and blurted out the news, assuming that I had told Lauren it was coming. I had told the rest of the family. Lauren's mouth dropped, and then she said, "He's engaged?" He was not supportive to me with my cancer. Erin immediately burst into tears when she saw how upset the news made Lauren. I kind of giggled. Aphasia can be funny. Lauren got her point across even if she was way off. I ended the call so I could explain things to Lauren, especially the fact that she didn't ever have cancer. The beauty of brain injury, is there really beauty in brain injury? Is that within an hour, Lauren was over the shock and had probably already forgotten. One of the things Lauren was learning at QLI was something they called errorless learning. The main concept is establishing a routine. When she wakes up, she brushes her teeth, washes her face, gets dressed, puts on her makeup, etc., always in the same order. Her keys to her room and purse always go in the same place. This was particularly helpful for Lauren because it allowed her brain to rest. All of her things had specific place and her day is set to a specific order. The method is designed to keep her from making mistakes. Lauren was responding really well to this way of learning, and I was thrilled to see her progress in such a short amount of time. 2 of Lauren's high school friends flew in to visit her on the weekend of her birthday. The 4 of us went to dinner downtown. While we were gone, a bouquet of flowers was delivered to Lauren's room. We were all dying to know who they were from, but Lauren kept us all in suspense. She refused to look at her card until she put her keys and her purse in the correct spot, washed her face, brushed her teeth, and put on her pajamas. Nothing would make her deter from her routine. Once she was ready for bed, she read the card. The flowers were from Courtney. Errorless learning is serious stuff. Lauren was already learning to rely heavily on her iPhone calendar. She enjoyed knowing what was next in her day and felt more in control of her own life. She had spent over 2.5 years relying on other people to direct her day. This was putting more control back in Lauren's hands. QLI had the look and feel of a small college campus. Many even refer to the program as Brain Injury College. It didn't take long before Lauren was independently moving around campus. She checked her schedule at the end of therapy to find out where to go next, just like a regular college student. Lauren and I flew home to St. Louis in October so she could attend a Taylor Swift concert with all of her sisters. After the concert, the girls were invited backstage to meet Taylor. Last time Lauren and Taylor were together, Lauren was in a coma. When the girls arrived backstage, along with all the other meet and greet fans, Taylor's staff let them know that photos were only done in groups, and then Taylor would sign a quick autograph. Taylor called my girls over first and specifically requested a picture with just her and Lauren. She seemed genuinely pleased and shocked to see how well Lauren was doing and how good she looked. Lauren had her iPad with her in her purse. One of the girls suggested Lauren ask Taylor to autograph the back of her case. Instead of a standard autograph, Taylor wrote, "Lauren, I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of you. I hope you always remember how brave you've been. You're a miracle, Taylor." Before the concert, I wasn't sure if Lauren would even have the stamina to make it through the whole show. The girls knew there was a high possibility they would be leaving before the concert was over. They were well versed in Lauren's Irish goodbyes. Thankfully, Lauren pushed through and the girls created a memory together that will last a lifetime. Lauren and I flew back to Omaha the very next day. The weather in Omaha was starting to get colder. The changing seasons somehow made being away from home sting a little bit more. I turned on my apartment's heat and could smell the burnt dust from the furnace. This familiar smell previously reminded me of home. Feeling the warm air coming from the vents always made me feel safe and warm. Now it was just an ugly reminder of all the time I was missing away from home. There's a floor heat vent in our kitchen that the kids would fight over when they were little. They liked to sit on it while eating their cereal in the morning. Ryan called it the heat bench. To this day, on chilly mornings, he occasionally sits there with a bowl of cereal. While I was living in Omaha, Maggie earned the nickname Little Deb from her friends at school. Now that Dave was in charge of grocery shopping, Ryan and Maggie survived solely on Little Debbie baked goods. Dave stopped at the grocery store every night for his nightly ritual of a rotisserie chicken and a salad from the salad bar for himself, while Ryan and Maggie alternated between honey buns, Swiss rolls, and cosmic brownies for dinner. The dinner ritual was the same every night. It seemed as if Dave was catching on to errorless learning too. Lauren and I flew home for a few days in November to celebrate Thanksgiving. Our flight was delayed and Lauren was struggling with sitting still. The Omaha airport is really small, and once you pass security, your options in the terminal are very limited. I was going to need to be creative in order to keep Lauren sitting. I opened my computer and pulled up all the pictures I had from Lauren's accident and recovery. We went through hundreds of photos while we sat there killing time. She seemed genuinely interested in each image. And after several minutes, she looked at me with a very serious look on her face and asked, "Where were you?" I wasn't in any of the photos, so she assumed I wasn't there. I wanted to tell her, "I was busy painfully balancing on a metal side rail, holding your head up to keep you from choking on your own vomit." Instead, I laughed and told her I took all the pictures. Once we finally made it back to St. Louis, my first order of business was finding out what we needed at the grocery store. To begin, I opened the door to the pantry where it was safe to say we had plenty of chips and snack cakes, but little else. It felt like I was starting from scratch. My kitchen was no longer my kitchen. I felt more like a guest who didn't get access to the best towels or linens, but a guest whose bathroom had been stripped of every last bottle of body wash, shampoo, conditioner, and razor by the vermin that lived down the hall. At Thanksgiving dinner, we all ran around the table saying what we were thankful for. When it was Dave's turn, he made a joke about how he was thankful his wife refers to her apartment in Omaha as her home. We all laughed. It drove Dave crazy whenever I would say something like, "I left my favorite sweater at home," or "I need to remember to bring that home with me when I leave." He would correct me every time by saying, "This is your home." In my defense, it was much easier than saying, "I left my favorite sweater at my temporary housing in Omaha." Now that I knew it bothered him, I made sure to refer to it as my home every chance I got. I had to keep him on his toes. Dave and the kids visited us several times during our time in Omaha. It made my time there much more bearable. On the weekends that we didn't have visitors, we were running out of things to explore. Lauren was having Nordstrom withdrawal. Every Saturday morning, I would pick her up and she would type Nordstrom into her phone. She was convinced Omaha had a Nordstrom department store. It doesn't. What she found was a dentist in Omaha named Dr. Nordstrom. Every single weekend, she pulled up his name. If he would have had Saturday hours, I might have dropped her off on his doorstep and let him try to explain it to her. QLI was working on correcting some of Lauren's behavior issues. If she wanted to talk to someone, she would walk up, even if they were talking with someone else, and interrupt, or she would walk into an office with a closed door without knocking. She acted as if rules didn't apply to her. She was still highly social, but was also highly socially inappropriate. It was common for her to reach for someone's hand while they were talking, or for her to place her hand on someone's arm if she was talking to them. She was starving for an emotional attachment that she could no longer receive verbally. Touch was a way for her to feel connected to people. Although I understood why she did it, it was important for her to know that it was not appropriate for her to rest her hand on the upper arm of the lady seated next to her on the airplane. When Lauren first began finding her words and speaking, she would tell everyone she encountered that she loved them. It was really sweet in the beginning. Friends and family were thrilled to hear those 3 little words. It began to get out of hand when she was professing her love at the same time she was writing those $3,000 checks. She loved everyone, waiters, doctors, therapists, and my personal favorite, telemarketers. I knew I had to find a way to get through to her that she couldn't possibly love all of these people. It was hard to watch when I would see Lauren reach for one of her therapist's hands while she was interacting with them. They would tuck their hands in their pockets and ignore her outstretched hand to keep her from making contact. Part of me wanted to tell them to stop being so mean, but I knew she needed to relearn social appropriateness, and they were helping her. Lauren had to learn how to navigate her way through life. Her lack of a filter and body language often put us in awkward situations. This was why we were in Omaha. I needed to let go and let the experts show me how to help her. Hurt feelings had no place in her rehabilitation.
That's hard for me to even hear that part because I'm a toucher too, and it's boundaries, but that's her heart. That's her heart. I love her. So when you read this chapter, Mama, what's your takeaway revisiting it?
This one wasn't, some of them, like I've shared with you too, are really, really tough. This one wasn't, even though it was a lonely time for me, it wasn't so much tough for Lauren. So it's a lot easier to deal with my own hardships than to deal with Lauren's hardships, because this was a positive experience for Lauren. We had, some glitches here and there, but as a whole, this was a big part of helping put Lauren back together. So it's not an emotional chapter for me to go through, even though for me, I'd never felt more lonely and alone. But I think that's my biggest takeaway on this one.
Spoken like a good mama that you are. And if you've been following us, you know that my copy of this book is all marked up with things in the margins. And I have on the very first page of this chapter, I put great writing. To your point, I was hopeful for her future, yet terrified of the process. That's spoken as a mama who shares the same heart, I believe. I was hopeful for her future. How many parents can relate? Right, but terrified of the process. Well, the process is continuing, and she's doing speaking engagements, and she's inspiring people like me. And for the record, she can hold my hand anytime. I would be honored.
Thank you.
Love her. I love her. And I just have to give a shout out to Dave again. What a good sport he is. Yeah, when you're like, oh, I just had to keep him on his toes and refer to it as home. I can see that, that's the relationship. You guys are high school sweethearts, is that right?
No, right after high school.
Right
after high school, yeah.
And the two of you go together like Forrest and Jenny.
Yeah.
Like peas and carrots, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. He used to always say the lady at Dearborg's. So those of you that aren't in St. Louis, Dearborg's is a grocery chain. But
Right.
He said, I know the lady thought I was a single dad because I would show up every day with my rotisserie chicken. And then every once in a while, Maggie would be with me and she'd probably think, oh, he's got his kids this week.
But that chapter where you talk about how he was just the backbone, and when he showed up, that's the beautiful part of all of this. Again, you wouldn't have scripted it, this family, but you stuck together, and the journey continues, and sky's the limit for all of you together as a unit, really, not just Lauren. Yeah. And this is why I love you. So is there anything else that you want to add about this chapter, Cornhuskers?
No, I think
I'm so grateful.
That's it. Yeah.
So grateful for your time. We have this clip that I love to go out on. People, if you've been watching, you've seen it, but it kind of sums up. You want to set up that the video of the commencement again?
Yes. So Lauren had shown interest in wanting to become a public speaker, which is a lofty goal for someone with aphasia that struggles with speaking and language. But
Now she has her own business card.
yes,
She
so
handed me when I met her.
yes. So I, tried to support her. I'm like, okay, we'll do this, we'll do it together. And long story short, we'd only done, I think, one speech when we were recommended to do a commencement address for Fontpine University, which is where she actually went to college and also did speech therapy through their speech clinic there with students. So at this point, all the speeches that we had done up until the day of commencement, I had been doing probably about 85% of the talking. So I knew that I had to somehow transfer this over to Lauren. Well, with aphasia, she can't read. With a brain injury, she can't remember. So it's like, how are we going to pull this off? Once we agreed to do it, I thought, now what were we thinking? And, we immersed ourselves in it 24/7 for about 6 weeks. And when we weren't practicing it, we were listening to the recordings of our practicing so that, it would soak up in her brain. And she brought 3,000 people to their feet at the end. So,
yes, she did.
She always rises to the occasion.
She does. It's goosebump inducing. So it's perfect to go out on this. We'll see you next week for the next chapter.
I'm actually out of town the next 2 weeks.
That's okay.
I'm
It's all
sorry.
good. It's all good because you know what? It doesn't surprise me because that's it. It's like full speed ahead for you guys, and you're inspiring people. So yes, good. 2
Well,
weeks.
and next week, on Friday, I think I will be at this little exotic zoo in Lake of the Ozarks, like our very own Tiger King right here in Missouri. I can't wait.
Speaking? Are you speaking there?
No,
Or you're just visiting?
we're just
I've
going to
been there. I've
I've
been there with my brother and niece and nephew years ago. The time hop.
Well,
comes
this
up.
is a new one. This is a
Oh,
new
it
one
is?
that
Oh,
has
it's new.
it has
Oh,
little baby animals, but the guy that bought it used to have big cats.
okay.
So,
Well, you're excused.
yeah,
You're
it should
excused.
be
And
fun.
moments like that, family trips and vacations brought to you by the resilience of this family,
Yes.
who leaned into faith and soak it up. Soak it up. All those things are the good stuff. So thank you again, my friend. I love you and I'm so grateful for you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to roll this commencement video again. I can't see it enough.
Okay.
Share, you guys, if you're inspired, click subscribe and share and grab your own copy on Amazon of Murphys Don't Quit. God bless y'all.
Obviously, most of you are not going to have a catastrophic injury to deal with like Lauren has. We hope nobody has a catastrophic injury to deal with. But you will meet some roadblocks and some detours. And we hope that you remember this day and remember these lessons that Lauren shared with you might make that road just a little bit smoother. So Lauren, can we recap?
Of course. Number 1, show up. 2, find your cheerleader. 3, kindness is free. 4, work hard. 5, never give up. You got this, class of 2019. You got this. Thank you.